Thank you for being with us tonight. My name is Marion Taylor. I'm from the League of Women Voters of Oakland. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We have two candidates running for city auditor. In alphabetical order, they are Len Raphael and Brenda Roberts. I'm going to start by telling you the ground rules for the debate. Each candidate shall have 1.5 minutes for opening remarks. The order was determined by drawing lots. Audience questions will be screened to avoid duplication and personal attacks. The order of answering the questions will be alternated, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. There will be no rebuttals. Following the questions, each candidate shall be allowed 1 minute for a closing statement. The timekeepers will signal the candidates with colored signs marked 30 seconds and stop. Now it is time for the candidates to, now let's begin with the first candidate, Brenda, Brenda Roberts, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Roberts. I'm running for Oakland City Auditor. First of all, thank you for sponsoring this event, both from the League of Women Voters and from the community. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to participate. I have always been involved in my neighborhood and my community, and I'm running for Oakland City Auditor because I have the experience that Oakland needs right now. I have lived in Oakland for the last 25 years. As a single mom, I raised my 3 daughters here. This is my home. I want to bring my expertise as a certified internal auditor to bring about transparency and professionalism to the Office of City Auditor. As Oakland's next city auditor, my goal is to serve you in the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. I have 2 decades of professional experience, including being a CPA, a certified internal auditor, and a certified fraud examiner. I have worked with national firms, KPMG and Deloitte, and I have performed audits of agencies such as the Office of Inspector General, Department of Labor, City and County of San Francisco, and other Fortune 500 companies. As auditor, I seek to bring professionalism and transparency, and I will work to bring about fiscal responsibility and transparency to City Hall. Proper fiscal management will bring about the protection of Oakland's fiscal health, its public safety, and its core services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Len Raphael, your opening statement.
Did they hear it again? Let me just start then. Okay. Now, okay. My name is Len Raphael, and I'm running for City Auditor. I received my auditor training at Price Waterhouse. For the past 30 years, I've run my own CPA firm in Oakland and Emeryville. Betty and I have lived in Temescal 35 years, and both our sons graduated Oakland Tech. For years, I've been active in the community. Treasurer Beth Abraham, crime prevention activist, Oakland Food Pantry board member. I apologize for now going negative, but sometimes voters have to hear negative information in order to make informed decisions. In 2011, I changed my voter registration to Democrat out of disillusion and dismay with my former party. In 2014, the other candidate changed her registration twice in 1 month from Republican to American Independent to Democrat. She made her final change on the exact same day she filed to run for city auditor out of political expedience in a city where almost every candidate, including myself, is a registered Democrat. Who do you want to be your auditor? Do you want someone like me who changed his political affiliation for principled reasons, or someone who changed in order to get endorsements from politicians who don't even know her? Council members Gaio and Reed have listened to me speak in many council meetings. They don't agree with everything I've said, but they agree. I know the fiscal issues. I have the backbone to stand my ground. I also received this endorsement from former Oakland resident, Democrat Governor Hickenlooper of Colorado. I've known Len Raphael for more than 40 years. I know how much he cares about Oakland. Both his sons are graduates of West Point, who risked their lives in the defense of America. His wife is a nurse who has walked her share of picket lines. I know how big Len's heart is. I'm happy to endorse his campaign for city auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. First question. What would you say is the city auditor's role in the overall governance of the city? Len, will you start?
Yeah, the city charter lays out. Okay, hi. Yes, the city charter lays out the functions of the city auditor. I looked it up as well as made inquiries about what current auditor does and what previous auditors have. I've looked over their record, what they've audited. I've observed this the last two auditors in great detail over the years. For sure, the main function is to audit all contracts and all departments of the city for compliance with the terms of legal contracts and the descriptions for those departments. However, and that would be mostly what the job is, to basically see where the money goes, make sure it's spent correctly. However, there is also a provision in the charter, a requirement that the city auditor act as the independent budget analyst. I would resurrect that function, revive it, and make it an important part of my function. Thank you.
Okay, Brenda, thank you. What would you say is the city auditor's role in the overall governance of the city?
Thank you for the question. So the city auditor has a very critical role in government, and that is to bring an independent, objective, and impartial viewpoint to all of the city's activities, whether those are fiscal or operational. The city auditor provides an oversight to make sure that monies are spent wisely and as they should be, that programs are implemented as they intended, that deliverables have been submitted as they should be, and that the resources of the city is being used appropriately. In addition to that, the city auditor also looks to see that the resources are being used efficiently. Sometimes it's not just about, is the money being spent as it was intended in the program, but are there more efficient ways to use the city's resources so that the core programs are protected and monies and resources are available for other activities of the city. In this way, the city auditor provides an overall viewpoint and an evaluation of all of the activities of the city and can communicate those both to its city council, community leaders, and to the citizens itself.
Thank you. Len, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not doing a good job here. Here's the next question. Has wait,
Yes, he's finished. He's done.
Has Oakland audited the Oakland Police Department's and Measure Y funding and the services provided? Brenda, we'll start with you.
So there have been a number of audits that the city auditor has performed. And part of the role of city auditor is to audit certain measures and certain initiatives of the city. In this realm, audits of these type of measures are incredibly important to City Council and to the citizens to make sure that those funds are being used as intended and that the deliverables have been realized as was part of the plan. In this realm, the city auditor continues to both audit those measures and also to give City Council updates as to how that progress is being made. In many instances, the city auditor will also do an analysis of measures before they're implemented. This is a way of providing City Council with an analysis of proposed measures and proposed programs and how those will field out with regards to financial results. Thank you.
Thank you. Len? Has Oakland audited the Oakland Police Department's Measure Y funding and the services provided?
No, it has not. It has not audited OPD's performance under Measure Y. The city auditor has audited technology use at OPD, but has failed to audit how OPD properly used its Measure Y funds. It is also, the city auditor has, in my opinion, has also failed to evaluate the performance of the anti-violence grants as well. The auditor has performed what the auditor called a performance audit, but in my opinion, that audit was essentially an evaluation of how well they filled out their paperwork in complying with their contracts, not what you or I would think performance meant, which is how effectively did they reduce violence in the city.
Thank you. We have one more quite specific question. Does the auditor review the enterprise fund of the Parks and Recreation Department? Len, we'll start with you.
Well, I could tell you the auditor's required by the charter to audit virtually every. No, not virtually. They're required explicitly to audit every department in the city, and pretty much any quasi city government entity in which the administrators, the trustees, the board of directors of that entity are appointed by the city government. So, as long as there's an entity which has money that it gets and is controlled by the city council, it has to be audited. That would be my opinion, and that would include, by the way, the Port of Oakland and the Coliseum. Yes.
Thank you. Brenda?
Thank you. Could you repeat the question?
As city, just a moment, sorry. Does the auditor review the enterprise fund of the Parks and Recreation Department?
So the city auditor has, by virtue of its charter and its role as an independent oversight of all city activities, fiscal and operational, the city auditor has access to all areas of the city. This is appropriate and the way it should be. If we look at the resources, it is not possible to audit every single area and every single department. So in this regard, a trained auditor will use his or her abilities to perform a risk assessment to determine where those resources are best spent. In my world and the world that I have been working in, implementing strong internal controls can leverage the resources of the city auditor so that in many cases it is mere testing of internal controls to ensure that the fiscal operations of the enterprise fund is correct and operating appropriately, and that resources of the city auditor's offices are used in the right way.
Next question. If, as city auditor, you become aware of commingling or misallocation of program funds to cover overhead, what actions would you take? Brenda, we'll start with you.
So this is where my training as a certified fraud examiner comes into play. I have conducted and directed a number of internal investigations and inquiries and allegations of fraud and malfeasance. The first step is to understand the facts and circumstances of the case, and then second is to oftentimes bring in other experts for very appropriate reasons. Often, legal counsel is required to be included in these type of inquiry and investigations because we need to make sure that we're complying with the requirements of both the city and other kinds of laws and regulations. To the extent that it requires other kinds of expertise, we may bring in other experts that would be appropriate to be included in that investigation. At the end, the city auditor would be involved in the overall investigation, but would use her expertise and competency and experience in this field to bring in other experts as required. Thank you.
Thank you. Len?
Well, if you were even the least bit paying attention to Oakland fiscal matters the last decade, you would know that what you're describing was business as usual in the worst years of the recession, and even before that. That came to light to the public during the Dellums era. And that was the basis for some scandals there. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying it was business as usual. What would I do if I came across that? Well, essentially, I would yell and scream gently. And when I was told by the politicians we have to do that because we're broke, and I'm sure we will be facing I know we'll be facing severe economic times in the City Hall in just a few years by the city's 5-year projections, the temptation will be to finagle funds around. What would I do? If the City Council ignored it and didn't put an instant stop to it, I'd go directly to the voters.
Thank you. Next question. Citizen participation can be a good tool for transparency. What proposals do you have to include citizen participation in the operation of the auditor's office? And Len, we'll start with you.
I'm very active on social media with a group of about 200 younger Oakland people generally, but not all, who actually attend city council meetings and subcommittee meetings, for gosh sakes. I've never seen that in Oakland before in my time, and that's just really wonderful to see. As city auditor, I would be very open to sharing anything that wasn't confidential with them or prohibited by law. And I would be posting that stuff probably weekly, maybe even daily. The other thing that I would do is I'd work closely with Open Oakland and Hack Oakland to make sure we could get real-time information to all the residents about what's going on. They could access a lot of these information directly and I would make sure, I would facilitate them getting information, journalists as well, of any kind, official or unofficial, so they don't have to beat their heads against the wall trying to get information requests satisfied by the city. Thank you.
Okay, Brenda.
And thank you. Could you repeat the question once more, please?
Citizen participation can be a good tool for transparency. What proposals do you have to include citizen participation in the operation of the auditor's office?
Thank you for the question. Transparency is an incredible and a critical role, and the Oakland City Auditor provides the mechanism to bring about that transparency. First of all audit reports are public. So these are posted and all citizens have access to those, not just the city leaders or those who in departments or areas that the audit is intended for. But these are open to all citizens. There is a hotline complaint that's managed and directed by the City Auditor's Office to make sure that all complaints are reviewed and followed up on. In addition to that, I think that the City of Oakland's citizens would benefit from some financial education. I would look forward to bringing citizens in a more engaged approach to talk to citizens in small groups or larger groups about what the fiscal results of the city are, talk about some of the audit reports in layman terms, have an ability to have a town hall and discuss these either in a group or in smaller groups as a way to engage and to bring about citizens into the city auditor's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. City of Oakland building inspectors allege that revenue from code enforcement fines is being applied to the general fund. This is a violation of state law. If elected, would you audit code enforcement revenues? Len, we'll start with you.
I got real excited on that issue because I raised that issue myself 3 years ago. And it's critical because state law, which was part of the Prop 13 legislation, specifically forbids fines and fees from especially fines, from exceeding the direct cost of enforcement. And I have actually spent I've spent a fair amount of money of my own on permits, so I have a little firsthand knowledge of that. I don't think it biases me, but it makes me very aware that the permit fees in the building department bear no relation to the direct cost of providing those. And I would say there's an excellent chance they're in violation of state law. And that is on my list, by the way. It's on my website. That's one of my items to audit.
Thank you. Brenda.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question once more? Thank you.
City of Oakland building inspectors allege that revenue from code enforcement fines is being applied to the general fund. This is a violation of state law. If elected, would you audit code enforcement revenues?
Thank you. So what we're talking about here, those of us in audit speak, we talk about fund accounting. So in this specific scenario we're talking about here, these are revenues that are earmarked and must be in a certain type of fund, not into the general fund, which gives those monies applicable to all kinds of expenses. This is a very straightforward financial type of review to ensure that monies received under certain directive are funneled and directed to others. This would be, I would approach this as I would with any other complaint or allegation. I would take all the facts and circumstances. I would look at it as from a very objective viewpoint, sort out what is correct, and then perform the necessary reviews, internal investigations, or whatever is required based on the circumstances of the allegations.
Now we have a broad question. In your opinion, where is Oakland wasting money, and where would money be best spent, and why? Brenda.
Okay, wasting money. Well, first of all, an organization, a government that's run efficiently will not be wasting money. So much of what a city auditor can do is to ensure that internal controls are in place. When we have the proper internal controls in place, it leverages the work of the city auditor to make sure that monies are being brought in as they should be. We're collecting the right amount of monies in the right amounts, and that we're spending them in the right place. Specifically, where are monies being wasted within the complex area all of Oakland, I would take, if I were elected into this role, I would take a fresh, objective viewpoint. I would take a very strong due diligence look at everything about the city, including the budget, its operations, and all the departments, and determine where is there waste, where is there abuse, so that we can determine how to turn the knob off on that and direct those resources to where they should be.
Thank you. Len. In your opinion, where is Oakland wasting money, and where would money best be spent, and why?
Well, the areas that I would look at for initially for waste and inefficiency would be public works, first of all. I would ask myself, where have those millions and millions of sewer tax revenues gone over the years that we're all paying either directly or indirectly through our water bills or our landlord's water bills? That would probably be high on my list. Another one that would be high on my list would be police overtime and police disability claims, which might be perfectly reasonable, but I know police supporters have asked for records in the past on police overtime, and they've never been given those. The last thing I'd ask for, probably I'd look at, is where the tax overrides from decades now of high ad valorem taxes have gone. They were supposed to go to fund PFERs, and again, the city has stonewalled all efforts to give records on that. I think that money got siphoned away, but I'm not sure. I would look at it objectively and decide.
Thank you. Next question. How closely have you followed Oakland's financial and political dealings through the years? Do you think that is important for the job of auditor? Len, we'll start with you.
Well, if I didn't think it was important, I wouldn't be running. That's the only reason I'm running, folks. I am a reluctant politician here, okay? I pretty much was told I was guilt-tripped into running by people who've read my postings and op-eds over the years, who said basically, put your body where your mouth and keyboard hands are. And they said, Len, you've written about fiscal matters for many years. You've spoken before city council. It's time for you to actually get inside of City Hall and try to do something. And maybe you'll realize it's not as easy as you thought, and maybe you'll be able to do some good. And that's my position, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda.
Thank you. And if you could repeat it once more, thanks.
How closely have you followed Oakland's financial and political dealings through the years? Do you think that's important for the job of auditor?
I think it's important for the auditor to be up to date with current events and with financial activities. So yes, I keep up to date with financial goings on, both at the city and with the Bay Area companies. But let me just backtrack for just a minute, because as a city auditor, the integrity and the professionalism that I bring means that I'm not coming in with an axe to grind or a specific target to go after. My role as city auditor would be to come in impartially and to be objective, to look at all of the areas that I have heard about as keeping up with current events, and to determine where the resources of the city auditor's office should be applied, to determine those that are of the highest concern, the most critical ones, so that we can use our professional staff in the most astute manner possible, so that we're not wasting city funds running after an area where we think may be incorrect, but we have a better viewpoint if we do the proper due diligence. Thank you.
Next question. Oakland seems to be using outside consultants on a regular basis. Is this an area you would include in your purview? Brenda.
So outside consultants. Companies and organizations use outside consultants for two reasons. One, because they don't have the specific expertise of a project or an event or some kind of scenario, or they need the hands and feet. They need the people on the ground to do the work. This type of allegation or this type of claim of consultants need to understand a few things. What is the dollar amount? What is the percentage used? What is the appropriate level of consultants based on need and from expertise and actually people on the ground to do the work? And then based on that, I would do a review to ensure that we're using our monies wisely, that we're using the resources we already have, which are a number of city employees, and do we have the correct training and expertise so that we don't need to rely on consultants any more than is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Len, sorry. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Oakland seems to be using outside consultants on a regular basis. Is this an area you would include in your purview?
I've already included it on my list. It's probably on my website. I know it's been in postings where I've pretty much said that we have to do a comprehensive survey of all our consulting costs. I know that I've noticed over the years an increase in that. I've also noticed the consultants are usually ignored, which is sort of interesting. They usually bring them in, whether it's for the Valdez project or whether it's for OPD. I mean, just look at those OPD consultants. My gosh, they brought in people who basically repeated what the previous people said and paid them, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, hey. It reminds me of what my organizational behavior teacher once told me at Berkeley. He said consultants are hired to basically justify a decision you've already made. And I'm afraid that might be the case in Oakland, except in Oakland they usually ignore the consultants. Yes, it's an area of significant concern to me.
Okay, here's a very general question. How do I tell where my money goes? Len.
Interesting question. Well, I mean, there is an external CPA firm that performs an audit of the financial system and statements produced by the city. It is supposed to make sure that those statements fairly represent the results of the city's operations, the assets and liabilities in place, consistent with the standards for government entities. There's a major problem with this, however. The major problem is that the standards for local government entity reporting are basically set by an organization that's dominated by local governments, unlike the private sector, where it's pretty much set by the SEC. So unfortunately, you can't really rely on the financial statements of the city in the sense of you're really trying to see what truly do we owe on pensions, what truly do we owe on various and underfunded liabilities. So really, it takes an auditor who's going to go beyond what the auditing and accounting standards are to explain that to the residents. Thank you.
And Brenda.
Thank you. So this is a great opportunity for the city auditor to have that community engaged approach that I mentioned earlier. The audited financial statements by our external auditors is a complex and often difficult to understand type of document. This is where the city auditor can engage the community either through small or larger groups through financial education to help understand what is the result of those financial statements and that audit opinion from the auditors, and what it means to each taxpayer, resident, citizen, and all the other stakeholders in Oakland as well. So this can be done through small groups, larger groups. It can also be done through some interactive type of engagements as well. This is an important way for the citizens to become better engaged and better understanding of the financial comings and goings of the city of Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you. This next is the last question. What is your level of commitment to this position? Would there be any other service or work obligations that may occupy your time? Brenda.
Thank you for the question. This is a critical job. The city auditor is responsible for the oversight for a city with a resident population of 400,000, about 4,000 employees, a port, an airport, and a lake. In any world, this requires the oversight by a professional and the best candidate for the job. This is my one and only job. I have told my employers that, and they know that I'm running, that if I am elected to this role, I will be resigning from my current job, and this will be my full-time job. It will require more than my full commitment to do the job that I intend to do, which would be a successful city auditor serving all of you with the highest level of integrity and professionalism.
And Lynn.
For many years now, I've been devoting anywhere from 10 to 60 hours a week voluntarily following Oakland fiscal matters, writing about it online to educate people about that, speaking in front of the city council. In the last couple of years, I've greatly reduced my own my own private practice, CPA practice, to the point where essentially if I were elected, I would make an orderly transition out of that. I would probably basically get rid of my business, but in an orderly fashion, so I didn't have to have a fire sale. And yes, it would be full time for me after that orderly transition. But meanwhile, to me, putting another 30 hours a week in on it, it's really nothing because I'm already putting in so much time on it anyway without getting paid. So I don't see any conflicts there. And by the way, according to the charter, if you could believe it or not, the city auditor is not a full-time position. That's impossible to believe, but that is the city charter. Thank you.
Len Raphael.
The auditor has to be impartial, objective, and independent. But just repeating those words over and over doesn't mean you will be when the political pressure is on and your budget is threatened or you need endorsements to get reelected. Declaring that you'll adhere to the highest professional standards is not sufficient to withstand the pressures brought to bear on the auditor at City Hall. Impartial doesn't mean not having opinions about how to correct Oakland's fiscal problems. You must have opinions if you have lived here for years and you have paid close attention to our fiscal issues, as I have. The key is to be aware of one's opinions and not let them influence one's audit conclusions or policy recommendations. Independence, an auditor who has a public record demonstrating the strength of character to audit powerful departments and contractors without backing down. Someone who's not dependent on the endorsements of people who don't even know her or him to get elected. Someone who will stand up before the council for his or her audit findings and advice about the fiscal impact about council decisions. See my website, lensforchange.com, for links to my op-eds, detailed platform, and a lengthy video interview. And I wish to thank the League and for those who've attended or viewed for their time and energy. Thank you.
Closing statement from Brenda Roberts.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's easy to talk, but it's harder to lead. I have had more than 20 years of experience in leading internal audit and audit shops in government and non-government. I have the credentials which represents my devotion and commitment to the audit profession. These didn't come about lightly. It is my own particular commitment to my education and to my expertise so that I bring to bear to you the most qualified and candidate to this job. I profess to be a collaborator. That means that I work with others to bring about change, and that's an important part of what the city auditor does. Listens, hears, and brings the people to bear to bring about the best solutions to the problems. I'm very honored to be endorsed by a number of great supporters that are all the way across Oakland, including the Alameda County Democratic Party, the Alameda Labor Council, the NWPC, that's a women's political caucus, Rob Bonta, Assembly Member of District 18, Melanie Sweeney Griffith, who is a former chair of the Democratic Central Committee, many Democratic clubs. I'm so honored to have those endorsements, and many other city leaders, including President of the City Council, Pat Kernahan. Thank you very much for your attention today, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for taking part in this session this evening to meet the candidates and for asking the questions that indicate the interest you have in the election process. For further information about forums and candidates, please visit the League's award-winning website, Smart Voter, www.smartvoter.org. There you will find descriptive information and links to other sources. Members of the League of Women Voters do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. To join us, just visit our website, lwvoakland.org. Thank you.